The Actors Studio is proud to welcome, from the class of 2000, our graduate, Bradley Cooper.
Welcome back to the channel. It has been a little bit since I put out a review. I still intend on doing those. Things have just been a little bit crazy, and I'm just trying to put them out when I can and not totally stress over it. So thank you so much for joining me today as we discuss the film Maestro. I really wanted to do a review about Maestro because I feel like it needs to be promoted a little bit more just because of the way Netflix decided to release it. Yes, it's going to be streamable on Netflix. I get that. It's probably at the tail end of its theatrical run, but I beg you, if you do live in a city that carries it currently in theaters, to go see it before it leaves. The sound design, all of the epicness does come from being able to be surrounded by the gorgeous music of Leonard Bernstein, as well as Bradley Cooper's phenomenal direction. He really channeled, I feel like, some like Orson Welles, Citizen Kane vibes when he was choosing what shots to tell this story the best, because it really rang true throughout the piece. I've said this so many times before in the past where, you know, you say, well, the person was really great at that impression, or that that person's performance was fantastic, but the movie as a whole wasn't that great. This one is not the case because Bradley Cooper has proven himself to be such an innovative filmmaker, and that's what I really want to get into today. Bradley Cooper decided to shoot this in a 4:3 aspect ratio, and I've been noticing that a lot more and more of directors are starting to like play around with the aspect ratio. I don't necessarily feel like it's a trend, but I feel like it's not the last time we're going to be seeing this, and I just feel like filmmakers are kind of like thinking outside the box of how they actually want to present their film, and that they aren't, you know, subjugated to how we normally view things on those screens each time. When you listen throughout the film to Leonard Bernstein's music, you can understand why a creative, artistic person would want to dive deeply into a creative genius such as this. And I think that it shows tremendously throughout Bradley Cooper's dedication and commitment to this movie of how important it was for him to showcase this film. I know early on, Spielberg and Scorsese were both kind of thinking about directing a Leonard Bernstein biopic, and early on the story goes that Bradley Cooper showed like a rough cut of the scene Shallow from A Star is Born. And they were like, oh, no, you have to do this movie. Clear that Bradley Cooper is so influenced with music when he's directing, and the decisions he makes are all inspired by what he's listening to. I feel like that works so well in a biopic about one of the greatest composers of all time. There's a scene that he reenacts, which is Bernstein conducting Mahler's Second Symphony in this cathedral, and it's considered to be like a very difficult piece to conduct just because there's so much going around, and there's this, again, this intimacy, but it's on such a large scale. Like there is this weird dynamic throughout the movie that is completely where you feel like you're right in the room, or you're like right next to him, but you're also kind of a voyeur. And I think that's like a really difficult balance to make happen, and I think he does that exquisitely in this film. Carey Mulligan effortlessly portrays his wife, and you know, sometimes when actors portray themselves at different ages, you know, from very young to very old, they unintentionally kind of become a different person, and obviously we grow when we are different people technically from different stages, but there's sometimes like missing this like linear chord throughout their soul. And I feel like with Carey Mulligan's performance in this, that's never the case. Like she is genuinely that woman, just a more mature, a more evolved version of herself. And I think that that's a lot harder to do than people might give her credit for, and I think she was absolutely fantastic in this. One of the issues about biopics is that they will sugarcoat a person's life to a point where it's kind of like, well, why are we even making this? Because I think it should be well-rounded, as they say, warts and all of a person. And I think that like that's kind of what Bradley did here. You do not ever feel like you are being spoon-fed this idealized version of an icon. You don't. That happened to me personally. I felt that was very much the case with the Bohemian Rhapsody film, about Freddie Mercury. I know the band was very heavily involved, but it really took away the authenticity. Again, I'm going to use that word a lot here, but that's the truth of the whole story of Freddie Mercury. And you never felt like you were being patronized as an audience member. You never thought like, oh, well, they're just, going to give us a little fluff and stuff, make these like incredible scenes with his music work out well. Like, it was very genuine, and it also, definitely showcased the maybe not so positive, more negative aspects of his life. Makeup, I have to say, is incredible. I know sometimes when a person transitions to an older version of themselves in a biopic, it looks very fake and kind of cartoonish. That is not the case here. The makeup is so natural, and the hair is all natural. Like, everything looks fantastic and seamless, and I would be shocked if it was not nominated and perhaps potentially wins for an Oscar for makeup and hair design, because my goodness, like at every stage that Carey Mulligan and Bradley Cooper are showcased as they age together, it's really, again, organic. It's not you don't see prosthetics, like you don't see the wrinkles just being fluffed on there. You don't see like the caked on stuff they used to do like 15 years ago. It looks really, really good. I know there are some critiques about how quickly the eras of his life kind of transition, and I can definitely see that. I will say though, the one thing I did appreciate is the fact that he really makes you feel what era you are in with the set design, the costume design, everything kind of in that world. You can tell when it's changing. I think that is a much smarter way to kind of sell a person's life or get points across to an audience than necessarily like putting dates on every 5 seconds. Because I think, like, yes, we can all do that. This just felt a lot more innovative in a way of kind of letting the audience know, like, okay, we're clearly in the 60s, we're clearly in the 70s, we're clearly in the 90s, without even needing any text on the screen. When it comes to awards this year, it's very tough. I mean, my goodness, this is probably one of the best years for Oscar-nominated films in, I don't know, a while. I mean, my goodness, everything that I've seen so far, and I'm not even done, is like excellent, excellent, excellent. Like, there's nothing that feels like it was just thrown in there just because they needed something to fill a 10th spot. There's such great work being done by these auteurs. Yes, I know Bradley Cooper is only on his second film, but you can tell an auteur when you see one, and he's it. You might think the film is, fine, but you can't ignore the brilliance that he has created in pieces throughout this movie, and his dedication and his passion to creating real art. And I just really think that needs to be applauded. Do I think that he's going to win Best Actor? I don't think so. And it's not that he doesn't deserve it. It's just because it is a jam-packed year with 7 to 8 people right now I think should be nominated for Best Actor. So it's just too tough to tell when it comes to the nitty-gritty of things. I do think he should deserve a Best Director nomination, though. I don't think that he's going to win. It's Nolan's year for Oppenheimer just for Best Director. I think Oppenheimer might upset in a lot of other categories, but I think that with Best Director, I think it's Nolan's year. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this film should be recognized, and it is a really well-made piece of art. And I really hope when it comes to streaming on December 20th that you all check it out if you haven't yet already in theaters. So long story short, I actually used to take acting classes with the woman that was Bradley Cooper's acting mentor. He studied at Pace University, which is the same studio that does, Inside the Actors Studio with James Lipton. Her mentor was Elia Kazan, and you know, I feel like it was some of the best training I've ever seen in my life, and they were very close. Every script that he worked on for his movies as an actor, she was guiding him on.
Who was your basic technique teacher? May I introduce to all of you Elizabeth Kemp. What were her classes like?
I'm a really loud crier, too. I was thinking about this today. And the thing that I wanted to say was, that I was never able to relax in my life before her.
Tell us what it was like to teach this guy.
There was something that had happened to me many years prior to that, and I had learned a great lesson from a mentor, Elia Kazan, who had said, you know, I only want to work with people who give everything they have to give and make it their work the most important thing to them in their life. And that was what struck me about Bradley, that every day he was there, he gave more than I think he thought even humanly possible to give. And it wouldn't stop. It was always leaving a piece of himself right there in the room every day and not looking back.
The most sacred experience I've ever had was in that room. No question about it. So thank you.
She, out of nowhere, passed away right before the release of A Star is Born. But the end credits of that movie you can see in memory of Elizabeth Kemp. And she was such an incredible woman, and she definitely guided him on his journey as being an actor and an artist. And one of the things that I noticed with his direction with this movie that I fully felt in the classes that I took there were that just because the dialogue's over doesn't mean the scene's over. And sometimes you would do a scene and you would stop speaking and she would just let it like breathe and live. And like sometimes to the point where you're almost thinking like, should I just say we're done? And it's like, but you didn't, because you just knew that's kind of what she was going for. And there was so much of that in Maestro, and I loved that because it did feel that like voyeuristic, organic fly on the wall, again with those intimate moments that I think were just brilliant with Bradley Cooper's direction. And it was totally, in my opinion, so influenced by the training he had by Elizabeth Kemp. And I think that there is a huge difference when you see actors on screen that have had really, really good acting training, because there's so much into the psyche that you really get to explore that you might not necessarily have even ever tapped into within yourself prior. And I think that that also contributes to being a really great director. So I just wanted to throw that out there because I still can't believe I was able to even spend the time I had with Elizabeth Kemp, let alone the impact she's had on so many actors' lives. And I can tell that he, definitely just absorbed all of that information throughout his entire body, because it comes off in every shot in Maestro. So I hope you all had a wonderful day. I hope you enjoyed this review. Check it out. Again, December 20th on Netflix. And it's Oscar season, bitches. So let's get the party started.